one thing that most people, maybe I'm sure there are some with a kink for it, but people don't like being victims or feeling like they've been victimized, especially if they don't feel as though the reason they were victimized is justified. Imagine, though, being made to feel like a victim only to say, wait a minute, like, was it really fair to have been victimized in this exact manner at this exact time? And then afterwards to demand that no one be victimized as such any longer by providing alternatives. Look, I'm fucking vague booking in a video here, but like, you can interpret it a lot of ways, but I'm talking about weed or like getting people in trouble for weed. Um, when you feel like you've been victimized and you're like, wait a minute, that was sort of fucked up. And then you take a feeble stand as a broke man with nothing and say, hey, people shouldn't be victimized like that anymore. We should have alternatives to whatever led us to, you know, whatever we're talking about that would, be considered a victimization. And imagine that you do that and it happens. Like, something fucked up happens. You're like, wait a minute, that was fucked up. All right, we should maybe offer alternatives to fucked up shit, right? And then the authorities or a bunch of rich people are like, well, that's actually not a bad idea. And in a very recent amount of time afterwards. And while I feel like that might help a person from feeling like less of a bad person, or maybe uh, maybe they feel a little bit vindicated, or um, you know, feel more like they'll be seen on the right side of history. Uh, but it doesn't really do much in the realm of helping people escape that feeling of having been a victim at the hands of laws, quite frankly, born of anachronistic thinking, misinformation, racist hysteria. Uh, and it's like, what do you do? I mean, how do you rectify those feelings of being a victim, especially when you've taken a stand and seen it realized in very concrete political terms? Um, and because in a way, I still feel sort of victimized over some things, and while I realize, you know, some things as well, I also, more than anyone, am acutely aware of the situations I've lived and what I've felt that I have to do uh, to be safe and to not be gouged or to be heavily exposed to, and consistently exposed to like really bad, like really, really bad criminal elements. And because as a young person in an area where there are lots of drug dealers and lots of drugs, because everybody's poor. It's not like in Colorado. I mean, I know there are places in Denver where it is like that, but in Mississippi, man, there's no, like, we all go to the same school. Just about. So, and that sort of environment eats young people alive, because Mississippi is so good at institutionalizing drug dealers that when they get out, they're fucking, a lot of them can be just straight up predatory. And so, and I mean, I just used the phrase drug dealer in a way that sort of excluded myself, but um, eventually, like, what I felt that I had to do to be safe and just not be perpetually gouged was, you know, um, get weed directly. Or, I mean, what would it look like for a teacher to be hanging out at a trap house with like a dozen people and half of them are on speed and fucking, you know? Anyway, I feel like when people decide to acquire substances from like sources outside of just like street level drug dealers, then they're attempting to escape being a victim. Uh, and the problem is now you're a target for not just the bad. You are a target for the bad guys, but now you're a target for the good guys. I always conducted myself in a way to where I mean, once I had enough weed to, it to matter, then I became really careful, but never in a way ever to where I felt like I needed to carry a pistol. Um, like I spent my life, um, like, and so did a lot of normal people, because that, like, navigating black markets is what you had to do to get weed, and we did it a lot, you know. Um, and so by the time I had any weed of substance, then I had watched enough people get robbed and or raided or have wires worn on them that I was very, very careful. I mean, I was working 3 jobs simultaneously in education. Um, and one thing I was careful about, with maybe one exception, that they fucking Guntown. I mean, most of the people who I helped to get weed were restaurant workers, child service agents, community college faculty, high school teachers, multiple nurses. Like, by the time that I figured out how to get weed, I didn't figure it out myself. It's just everybody else got arrested. Then they were like, so everybody else got raided or, got backstabbed. So do you want to have a go at it? And I was like, well, yeah, because like with very few exceptions, I mean, there was hardly any place to get, pardon me, cotton bud. And I think that when people um, take it into their own hands and start, and instead of just buying into someone else's drug system, like where there's an infrastructure in place and, like, a trap house, so to speak, where people are always hanging out, then I think it's good to take things into your own hands and do it yourself and avoid being a victim. I mean, set by the law. And honestly, they should look the other way about some shit until they figure out the rules better. If you have terrible rules, then you shouldn't blame people for being innovative in how they interface with those rules in a way that doesn't leave them open to exploitation and predation by people who are out there like with the intent of doing that solely like for their living. And I was extremely careful. But it doesn't matter. If they want to get you, they'll get you. Even 10 years after the fact, they'll make fake fucking Facebook profiles and try to feel you out over whether or not you've been shipping drugs back when you haven't in over a decade. It's just like, fucking spare me, man. If people aren't bothering other people, if people are being predatory and victimizing humans and children, then yeah, fucking, man. I mean, in like sordid ways, then get those motherfuckers and throw them under the goddamn jail. But people are just trying to sort of form like a safe society, then the law shouldn't interfere with that, because when like that's like a safe bubble that good people have made to avoid predation, you know, and avoid exploitation, being taken advantage of. That's like and those things can happen. They can arise and help people escape some of the more sordid shit that comes with addiction and drug use. And if you ask me, when the cops turn those people or try to turn those people into like villains, and instead of recognizing that people are just trying to like not get exploited, not get preyed on, you know, I mean, sometimes it's just when you try to fix a societal problem, you just fuck it up even worse. And I'm glad that laws have changed to help me feel less victimized. But honestly, like, I haven't had very many people be like, you know what? It was like very many officials. That's who I would like to hear it from. Be like, hey man, you know, it's really fucked up that we didn't get our shit together enough to get in on this nationwide not being assholes about weed thing, and we fucking took a big piss all over you and your family when we knew that it was, you know, becoming more normalized. And so fine, I think a good way for me to ultimately feel like I'm not a victim at all for weed is to help totally normalize not only just it, but any euphoriant or substance. Because when weed's gone, then they're gonna start, like, in some places they're gonna start just focusing on other stuff to arrest people for, and the links that they'll go to that are probably any links at all. And the best thing to do is just change the rules now, so you don't have to worry about them. It doesn't matter, because listen, it doesn't matter how discreet you think you are. If they want to get you, they'll get you. And the only thing you can do to stave it off is to make a genuine, earnest effort at raising awareness and changing the fucking rules. And that goes from everybody, from waiters to senators. Like, this should be a group effort of recognizing when shit is fucked up and taking steps to change it. It shouldn't just be me writing 10 paragraphs on fucking Facebook, you know? Like, because there's shit has got to change, okay? And if I have to, like, make videos and get a haircut and a better background and sweeter loincloth, but not write as much, then it's just what we'll have to do. Hasta luego way.